Okay, we're back on this again. Sorry I had to bail out yesterday. Anyway, just cutting the wraps in here. Finally made it into town this morning. The ground's a solid sheet of ice out there, and the driveway's a skating rink. So I had to get the tractor out this morning and scrape a path so we could get the car out. What happened here? But anyway, it was good to get to town. Well, let me finish this. You can see what I'm doing. It's not that technical. And we'll come back here in a minute and carry on. Okay, I've got all the grooves cut in here. Now what I'm going to do, before I do the hair, I'm going to take this over to the flap sander and sand it down pretty smooth. Okay, because I don't want it too rough. So I'll do that now. Remember yesterday we were talking about how this should flare out here a little instead of just drooping over? I changed it just a little bit. You probably, if you compare this to what was on the last part of the video, you can see it. But see, it comes down now and it flares out just a little. I couldn't do it too much, or I would have been biting into this area up here. But I changed it a little bit, just enough, I think, to where it looks a lot better than it did. And also, I had a boo-boo. Judy was telling me about what we were going to have for dinner tonight, and I got all excited. Slept. She accuses me of having food on the brain all the time, which is probably true. Anyway, I got to fix that, so I hope I just have to fix it and not have to trash this whole brain. But I'll show you how I do that. It's okay. It's for the next step. All right, I'm going to use a V-tool. Find one here. Just going to take the V-tool, go around the top of my braid where it goes into the wrap. Like that. And turn it around and take it all the way down. Doesn't matter if you get curves and stuff in it. Because hair doesn't hang perfectly straight either. I always wonder does basswood get harder over time? Because I bought a whole heck of a lot of it the last Dayton show, and then COVID showed up. Damn Chinese, I blamed them for it, naturally. Not the local Chinese, only those that live across the ocean. And I didn't carve very much during that period. So that basswood just sat out there in my garage in the cold weather and hot weather, and it sure seems a lot harder than it should be. So now I'm gonna look for a gallon. This gonna work good. Oops. I'll go this way. And go down each little strip here. That one needs that littler gouge. We'll do this one here. I guess you can see the purpose of these gloves, the way I'm slipping and sliding all over. Anyway, that doing this gives you a pretty nice hair appearance. And I know some people are saying, well, why don't you carve braids? Well, I don't think they're necessary. And I don't think every Indian braided his hair. A lot of Indians just let their hair hang loose. So I just don't think it's necessary, and I've been doing it this way for years. I'll carve this down to a point here. That looks pretty good. All right, for the next step. Okay, to attach the braid to the head. I have here two 5-penny galvanized nails, okay? Cut off that head there. And find me a nail that's about the size, or find me a drill that's about the size of this nail. Just a little larger, wouldn't hurt. Right there. Always have to put my drills back, because if I don't, I'm going to lose them. So I'm going to drill a hole, and I want to make sure I don't come out somewhere. That's far enough. And I've got my hole here from before. Oh yeah, it works good. Need to go just a little deeper. Get rid of that fuzz there. Now I'll put it on here. Okay, so we know that doesn't look good, so where it goes into braid right there. Just grab that. Put that back together there. And there we go. Fits perfectly. Okay. So now before you can do the other braid, you have to go ahead and glue this one onto the head. Because you want to make sure, you know, the head's going to set straight on there. So what I'm going to do now is mix me up a little bit of epoxy, which I'm going to do. And sitting out here in the shop, it's probably going to be hard as a rock even before it's mixed together. This is just 5-minute epoxy. Yeah, it never fails. One side is always hard. So I'm going to set this over on the stove just a little bit and soften this side up. We will be back.
Action.
Okay, I've got me two pieces of epoxy here, two hardener on the soft side. I guess that's what you call them, I don't know. A and B, mixing those together real good. They used to make an epoxy. When we retired back here, I went down to Lowe's and found this epoxy. It was a wood epoxy, 2-part wood epoxy that looked just like wood, and you squeezed it out and it just worked terrific. Then all of a sudden one day it just disappeared, and I have never seen it since. They stopped making it. So now I order my epoxy from Amazon because it's always there. And go down to Lowe's, heck, you get to where you never, every time you go down there, something's disappeared. So I'm going to take my drill and kind of wiggle it around here to enlarge that hole just a bit. And do the same thing on the head. Give me a little more purchase area for the epoxy. See if I can shove a little down in there. Well, we'll come back here. That stuff down in there. And to just be on the safe side, I'm going to coat my nail with epoxy too. And put it in there. Just like that. Shove these two pieces together. Just like that. And sit here and hold them for 5 minutes. Boring, I know. So we'll come back after this sets up. Okay, for my repair job here, I got me a little piece of wedge of wood here. I'm just going to force it right in there, like that. And there's enough glue that it'll glue itself in place. And as this glue sets up, you can actually model it a little. I'm not going to bother with that back there. I'm just going to leave it. Go ahead. Got a little touch of glue right there. So we'll just wait till this sets up. It'll reach a point to where it's almost set, that you can move things around a little before it actually goes off. So, you know, you've got a little time here to play with it. But what you want to do, ideally, is to make sure it looks like your braid is laying down on the piece. And it is. So we'll just leave it alone for a while. Okay, the glue has reached the point. There's my little toothpick here. It's not totally set up, but it's almost there. That you could actually move this around a little. I'm not going to do it because I got that little plug back there. But anyway, it's where it's supposed to be. So now I can start to position my other braid on the other side of the head, which I did while I was sitting here. So there's it. And we make it exactly the same size as we do over here. But I'm not going to show that because we got time on our hands, but we don't have too much time on our hands. So I've shown you enough here, I think. Anyway, normally what I would do now is I would go back and with a knife cut off all this excess epoxy while it was still soft. You can do that. But being as I have this little plug set back here, I'm not going to do that until tomorrow because I don't want to accidentally leave that little plug, have that thing fall off of there. So anyway, what we're going to do now is we're going to do some feathers. So let me get a piece of wood and I'll come back and show you how I do that. Okay, feathers, here I've got a few feathers here. Feathers have a natural curve to them. They just sort of a graceful sweep. They're all like that. This one's kind of really curved. This one I've trimmed down to where it fits about the size and scale of a figure. About like that, okay? But what we want to do is we want to give that curve because it just looks better than just see the curve? It's just more natural. It almost looks like it's embracing the figure rather than to have it straight like this one. There's no curve there. So it just doesn't, to me it doesn't look as graceful. So I always put a curve on my feathers if I can. So what we're going to do here is we want this strength in the weakest part of the feather when we make our little feather, and that'll be the quill. So we want to line that quill up with the grain of the wood, about like that. So we want that feather, maybe not as sharp as that, but we want some grain, some twist to it. Let's be glue on the end of this pencil. So we'll just make it about like that. by curving it like that, it works to your benefit, as I'm going to show you here in a minute. Okay? And I generally put 2 feathers on an Indian. 3 is just too much to me. It detracts from the figure if you get too many feathers on him. 1, to me, is just not enough, you know, unless it's a single feather that hangs off the side of his head. I haven't really done that yet. I'm going to do that here one of these days, you know, hang it off the side of his head. But anyway, right now we're going to do this feather, and I'm going to go over with the bandsaw and cut out a couple, okay? Okay, here are my 2 feather blanks. You can see we've got a nice gentle curve on them. And here is the quill, comes up that way. And I like it sticking out the side of the back of the head, just makes it look good. Probably not really happened that way, but that's all right. It's my carving, I do it the way I want. So that's going to work just about right. So now we want to draw the feather on here. And like that feather there, the quill is generally heavier on one side than the other. Okay, like that. So I'm going to just starting to look like a feather. And there, it looks like a feather. Didn't take long, did it? So now, what I do, remember the curve, this is the straight grain here, and then this grain goes up. So I get my little palm gouge. So laying it down, all the chips on this side of the feather are going to come off like that. And all the chips on this side are just going to come off like that. So laying it out that way really works to your benefit, and it gives you that inner curve of the quill. So there we got the sort of a dished out feather here in the center of the feather, back side. Looks pretty good. Now we'll carve the other side. starting here. Good God, it's starting again, isn't it? Well, I tell you, we just have some wicked weather here the last few days. We were around this. Probably wondering what I'm doing here. Well, when Indians decorate their feathers, they generally wrap this area with cloth. So that's what we're going to do here. And then they put a little piece of fluff out here on the end of the feather, or side of the feather. Okay? So I want to get my edges down pretty thin here. I don't want a bulky looking feather. That side looks pretty good. I think that looks pretty nice. Well, but this one here is going to be made the same as this one here. Okay? So the next step of this, put this as smooth as I can in here. There's an area I can fix. Take this over to the Sandflex Flex Sander, flap sander over there, and smooth it down, okay? And then we'll go to the next step. Okay, this is modeling paste, acrylic modeling paste, okay? Bought it at Hobby Lobby, $13 plus tax. And what it is, it's the same carrier that acrylic paint uses, only it's, well, this is colored white, but it's just colored white, so you could paint it any color you want. So what I'm doing here is I got my feather. I'm going to get it wet. Wipe off most of the water here. Take my brush, get a glob on there. Like that. Set this aside. Find me a nice new toothpick with a sharp edge. Dip that in water. My quill line's right there, so what I'm going to do is here, I'm going to just make some and then on the other side. Like that. And gently take my And flip it over. Got a lot on there this time. What happens in the end, I was doing so good. And there we have a feather. Now I'll just set that aside to dry. I'm going to clip something to the bottom. I'll set it over by the stove and it'll dry. Be all nice and dry by tomorrow. But that's how I do my feathers. Now, why don't I make a regular quill go up towards in the center of the feather? I don't think it's necessary. Just a line to indicate that there is a quill there is plenty. Okay? At least that's the way I do it. So, like I say, I'm going to clip something to this and set it over by the fire so it'll be nice and dry by tomorrow. All right. Just touch her up here. I think it looks like a feather. It will by the time I get finished with it. So anyway, I think that's going to do it for today. So we'll be back here hopefully tomorrow to continue on finishing up this Indian.